Hi, welcome to another edition of the Alan Rosenberg Show. So if you actually watched my last video, it was called, Is Queen the Greatest Rock Band of All Time? There are clearly some people who didn't watch the video who commented because I was not saying that they are the greatest rock and roll band of the time. In fact, I was saying the opposite, that I've never been a big Queen fan. All I ever had was the two greatest hits albums, and I actually have trouble getting through them. I just can only take Queen in little bits. But as I had discussed in the video, over the last 10 years or so, and certainly the last couple of years, Queen is by far the largest streamed classic rock band. Nobody else comes close. And even in the popularity polls, Queen seems to be voted the greatest rock band of all time. So I decided to keep an open mind, and I've gotten a bunch of Queen albums, and I'm going to get some of the ones that are missing, and I'm going to listen to them really closely, and I'm going to be honest and open and keep an open mind and compare what I think of these albums and how they stand against what my opinion always has been as the greatest rock bands of all time. So let's get started. I have spent the last week listening to Queen, their debut album. I've listened to it, no exaggeration, 6 times. I got a pretty good feel for this album. So let's talk about it. First of all, it came out in 1973. They were working in Delane Lea Studios, legendary studio in London, and then they switched over to Trident. They actually signed with Trident, and they were working with Roy Thomas Baker. They had Devin Henschel, and as an engineer, John Anthony also produced it with the band. And they're obviously, keeping an open mind, an incredibly talented band. You got the 4 guys, of course, and Brian May on guitar, and John Deacon on bass, and Roger Taylor on drums, and of course Freddie Mercury. And it's an interesting album. Man, it's a classic 70s album. They really touch on like every style. Still has a bit of that Queen feel, but it's early in their career. And I'm going to go through it song by song. So first of all, I got to tell you, I love the cover. This cover is amazing. Love it. It is a classic cover. This is the back cover. I also love it. I love the hodgepodge and the potpourri of all these different pictures of the band live and in the studio. The album came out in '73, so they had been working on this for a while in the studio. They were using downtime at the studio. I don't know how many tracks they had. I'm not thrilled with the sound of this CD. I'm taking a guess that this album's been digitally remastered and probably sounds a lot better now. Although this is on Hollywood Records, so maybe this was remastered. But it definitely has that classic early 70s sound, and there must be so many layers of overdubs on this that it kind of has like a bit of a muddy sound, at least to my ears. But, you know, really cool looking CD. So let's talk about this album. It touches on all kinds of genres. They definitely touch on progressive. There's some ballads. There's a couple things on here that have, in my opinion, that classic Queen sound, but a lot of it doesn't, which makes it kind of interesting. So it starts off with Keep Yourself Alive, the only song on this album that I knew. It is a legendary classic Queen track and written by Brian May. It is awesome. It's a great opener. Everybody back in the days of albums and vinyl and even CDs, that opening track is key, and this is by far the best song on the album. That great crunchy electric guitar opening's got a thick guitar sound. You could hear there's a lot of overdubs, a lot of vocal overdubs and guitar layers. There's that drum break roll in it. It's really, really tasty, and it goes into a bit of a twin guitar lead sound, which I really like. It's a great, great rocker. You know, they're masterful musicians. Brian May is obviously a studio wizard. Like I said, I don't know how many tracks they had to record on this thing and how many times they mix it down, but it's got a good sound. It's a great track, no doubt about it. Keep Yourself Alive, one of my favorite Queen songs for sure. Goes into Doing All Right, another song written by Brian May. I think Freddie Mercury, I think, wrote, from what I saw in here, 5 tracks. Brian May 4, Roger Taylor did 1. Doing All Right's interesting. You got Brian May apparently on piano and acoustic guitar, and I'm always a sucker for a really nice ballad. Is a beautiful vocal by Freddie Mercury, and I like it because it's not that really high register. It's a deeper register. It's got some really good shading on the guitar. And then all of a sudden it goes from this beautiful melody, nice ballad, into this progressive rock break, which is completely different, with this crunchy guitar, and the full band comes back in. It's kind of strange. It's like that 70s progressive. I feel kind of unnecessary, but that's what they were looking for, this progressive sound that goes back to the ballad, which for me is the best part of it, and then they wind up jamming out again. It's a lot in 4 minutes of music. To me, it's like a band trying too hard. You know, they're just getting their feet in all different styles and taking what's a beautiful track, Doing All Right, and really make it into a progressive jam over 4 minutes. A lot to it. Great King Rat. That's the Freddie Mercury track that comes next. Man, that is another interesting track. That's over 5 minutes. They got everything in there but the kitchen sink. You know, it's got this great big crunchy guitar opening again. You know, really respect to Brian May and his guitar abilities. The vocal mix is really interesting. You could definitely hear an influence. They would later go in influence, I think, Twisted Sister. I kept hearing Dee Snider and Twisted Sister when I'm hearing that vocal sound on here. And I think he's a pretty big Queen fan at one point anyway. The chorus part, it's got a really upbeat, great vocal. There's a lot going on. I really like it. Then all of a sudden you get this massive wah-wah guitar solo, and I'm like, what am I hearing there? Uriah Heep? You know, it sounds like Mick Box from Uriah Heep doing this wah-wah stuff, you know, which is like, it's interesting. A lot of tempo changes. You get these thumping drums at one point, very heavily progressive again. And then it goes into like this acoustic guitar interlude, which is interesting, and then back to that thumping upbeat song and a lead guitar solo. Like I said, Great King Rat. It's a cool song. At least there's a really cool song in there somewhere. There's a lot going on. They're just trying like every kind of style. Next is My Fairy King, Freddie Mercury. That, at least on side one, is the most Queen-like song. You got Mercury on piano, I imagine. And you got these huge Queen-like vocal overdubs, just what you expect from modern-day Queen. It's right there in that song. The stuff sounds like synthesizers, but it's funny. When you look on here, it says no synthesizers. So that's got to be so much guitar layering from Brian May, because it sounds like a synthesizer, or maybe it's all that vocal overdubbing. It's very atmospheric, again, kind of progressive, different movements. It's okay. Let's go into side two. It starts off with Liar. Great track. It's kind of like Keep Yourself Alive. You need, or you don't need, but they did, and you should have that great opening track on each side, and they do. Liar is great. It opens up with the drums, and then you get this big heavy metal guitar rush, and this song totally rocks. I love how they do the chorus, Liar, which is like a cappella. And then the band kind of kicks in and answers it. Liar, boom, you know, back and forth with that. It's really, really effective. Then you get this musical break completely, where you get Freddie Mercury with singing along with like the percussion, and then it ends with like this big guitar outro. Really good track. Definitely the second best song, in my opinion, on the album. Then you get Brian May doing The Night Comes Down. That's the second song on this. Interesting, a very jazzy opening by John Deacon on bass. You get a twin guitar thing that goes into like a ballad, and you get the really, really high Freddie Mercury voice, which for me is a little bit of a, got to get used to that one. On the verses, it's got a really good chorus, because for me the chorus is in a lower register with higher harmonies. Throughout this album, Mercury's on a lower register for a lot of it, but on The Night Comes Down, man, he's got that higher voice at some points, and again, it's very progressive. It goes to this bass groove, and then this progressive kind of a feel, and then it goes right into Led Zeppelin, sort of. What's it called? Modern Times Rock and Roll. This one, I believe, is sung and written by Roger Taylor. And it's the most basic rock song. And in fact, it's like 2 minutes long. I don't even think it's 2 minutes long. It's got a lot of guitar layers, which Jimmy Page obviously did with Led Zeppelin. So I think there's a big Led Zeppelin influence on that. It's just an okay song. Then it goes into Son and Daughter. which is by Brian May, and I'm like, well, how did Black Sabbath get on this album? It's his heavy blues rock, sludgy Black Sabbath song for sure. That's called Son and Daughter. So you go from The Night Comes Down, weird progressive ballad, to Led Zeppelin, to Black Sabbath, all bum bum bum. And then it goes into the final song, sort of, Jesus, Freddie Mercury track. And I'm like, how did Andrew Lloyd Webber get in here with Jesus Christ Superstar? It literally sounds like a song that should have been on Broadway in Jesus Christ Superstar. Really theatrical, that really over-the-top theatrical Queen kind of a thing. And then, if that's not enough, it ends like this really progressive, almost psychedelic rock, almost like psychedelic Pink Floyd. Jam at the end, interlude. I don't know. It's interesting. And that's pretty much the end of the album. I love what they do theoretically, thematically, I should say. Seven Seas of Rhye is the last song, but it's really just like a rollicking piano outro, which, of course, that song is going to be on the next album, Queen 2. So they kind of end the first album to go into the next album, which is a cool, classy touch. So what do I feel? I feel like it's a massively talented band. Great, vocal harmony and musicianship is outstanding. The production on the album is not so great, but I don't know if that's my CD version, maybe. A lot of layers. But really, in my opinion, there's only two great songs on this album. Keep Yourself Alive, which we all know, and Liar, which if you're a Queen fan, you certainly know that. I'm really not that familiar with it. But that was a killer track as well. The rest of it it's a band. It's not unusual. You have certain bands in the 70s that just putting their feet into everything. Hard rock, progressive, sludgy Sabbath-like rock, little Led Zeppelin straight ahead, ballads that go into weird things. They're really touching on a lot of different styles and creating a bit of an identity. It's there, but it's not totally worked out yet. So an interesting debut. I like it. I don't think it's great, that's for sure. But as a debut, yeah, it's definitely... It's great to have a band that is going to be unique, and they're unique on this for sure. And that's kudos to that. So if I was going to rate this thing, and the way I rate albums is 5 stars is a perfect classic album. Very few albums get that. 1 star is worthless. Very few albums get that. 2 would be fair. 3 would be good. 4 would be excellent. I would say this is like between 2.5 and 3 stars. It's good. I heard it 6 times. I never need to hear it again. Most of the songs are just, okay. But Keep Yourself Alive and Liar are definitely the biggies. So there's my honest and open review. Of course, this is my opinion, and I'm not a huge Queen fan. That's the whole point of this series. If you're a Queen fan and you love every note on there, then you're right, because music is just everybody's opinion. But I'd love to know your opinion. I'm going to go through these. You're going to see I didn't get Queen 2 yet, so I probably wound up skipping it, go to Sheer Heart Attack. Eventually I'll get Queen 2 and go through these things and let you know what I think about Queen as I take this deep dive. I hope you're going to enjoy this series. Trying to be fair. I really am. If you're new, hit subscribe. Check out my other videos, and thanks so much for tuning. And this week I'll dip into Sheer Heart Attack. We'll see what happens. Have a great night.